Can the U.S. men's national team be a dark horse in the 2024 Copa America? But not like literally a dark horse, because to play in the Copa America, you have to be human. You can't have horses in your national team. But anyhow, because I don't know why I said what I said, if not the U.S. men's national team, which country outside of the top 3 title contenders, which would be Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina, could pull a massive upset and win the tournament? Let's switch that question for a second. What is a realistic goal for the U.S. men's national team in this edition of the Copa America? Could we finally get a signature win under Greg Berhalter? And today, we're going to be discussing all of that with no one less than Herc Gomez. Hi, I'm here on Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to a new mini-series here at the channel. Today we have episode 1 of this 3-episode mini-series with Herc Gomez, and for this episode, we will be discussing what will be considered a signature win for the U.S. men's national team in this edition of the Copa America. What would be a realistic goal, the future of Berhalter in case we get grouped, and which nation can be the dark horse to win it all, which you can tell me in the comment section of this video right now. I dare you. For episode 2, we will be debating who is the best U.S. men's national team 9, the center forward position, while episode 3, we will be addressing issues the United States men's national team must resolve as soon as possible while looking forward to the 2026 World Cup. You can now drop a like in this video because I won't be requesting during the video with Herc. And if you don't do that, I will bully you on Twitter. Yes, that was a threat. Okay, let's bring in Herc and let's start the episode. All right, everyone, we're back here with a guest that everyone is familiar with outside of the channel and then obviously at the channel because Herc has been here many times. Herc, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, man. How you doing?
I'm doing very good. It's a little cold here in Orlando.
Oh, what? I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it's a little cold in Orlando. Actually, it's raining. It's pouring rain today. We're like mid-50s pouring rain here in LA. I'm in Hermosa. I was going to say, can we still say Happy New Year? I don't know if you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm. I know there's a cutoff. Is it the 7th? Is it the 3rd? There's that dilemma.
Happy late New Year. Hopefully everyone has a great 2024. We'll put it like that.
All right. Do you know what I'm talking about? Curb Your Enthusiasm?
No idea.
Larry David, he's the creator of Seinfeld. Bueller. Jesus.
Do you see how much soccer I watch? Do you think I watch anything besides soccer?
Really quickly. All right. I know time is precious here, but what's the one thing you watch outside of soccer?
A little bit of NBA. A little bit of NBA.
How about TV, like actual shows, programming, like a show?
Whatever my girl puts on, and then I kind of half asleep with it. But I guess I'll watch occasionally some movies that I really enjoy the franchise, like The Matrix, Jurassic Park, Nintendo, like Mario movie. I liked it. Outside of that, I just really watch a lot of soccer.
I watched the Mario movie like 20 times. My kids love it. So yeah.
But you loved it too.
Yeah. Yes. It was a little weird with the accents, but they explained it well. I thought they did a good job. I wish, I'm sure there'll be more Super Mario movies and we'll see more Yoshi. We'll see other characters and whatnot, but I thought they did a very good job. And also Charlie Day does the voice of Luigi. He's on one of my favorite shows called It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which has got a loose soccer theme, if you will, because Mac, who's Rob McElhenney, who's Wrexham, the owner of Wrexham, correct? Yeah. He plays Mac on the show, and for the better part of over a decade, if not almost 15 years, this show's been going on for like 17 seasons, going on 18, I think. He used to wear, do you know Brian Dunseth? Brian Dunseth does a commentating on TNT. He did Salt Lake commentating. He does commentating for TNT Studio. He talks about the national team. You may have seen, trust me, those out there who are listening know Brian Dunseth. He started a company called Bumpy Pitch a while ago, which are these like old school NASL like t-shirts, right? Rob McElhenney started putting him on his show, It's Always Sunny. And he started wearing these t-shirts. So anyways, loosely soccer related, whatnot. You got to get a show, man. Have you never seen Breaking Bad?
Oh, no, I watched that, but that was 10 years ago, I
Okay,
think.
okay. I'm saying you got to get a show. There are plenty of good shows. If you're listening, recommend a show for Filippo because he's making me sad. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
do
Filippo. I'm
that, and I'll
sorry.
probably still not watch. But guys, the amount of Americans I have to cover on the weekend recap, people know this. But Herc, let's talk about the main event of the year, in my opinion, for soccer, U.S. men's national team fans, the Copa America. I
Yeah.
really want to dive into the Copa America. That's the main event. We're all going to be covering it. All going to be watching it. It's in the United States, so I'm going to try to attend games. I'm sure you're going to be at games covering. The first thing I wanted to talk about with this was a few weeks back, Jesse Marsh said something that I agreed with, and it caught a lot of attention from fans, media. He said Berhalter's USMNT never got a signature win, which I agree with him. I don't think they ever got a signature win. I think we've got big wins.
Okay. Wait. He says it, and now you're on board. I've been saying this for 2 years, and now Jesse Martin. Come on, at Football America 79 had the discussion week 1 of CONCACAF qualifying. No
But you see,
signature
we're
wins.
just haters. When someone else says it, that's not considered a hater. It has more weight to it. I've been saying
I'm an occasional hater. I'm not a hater by nature. I'm a hater by trait, by scenario. So
I'm a
if you give me a
professional hater.
reason,
I'm a
well, at
prof-
least you're honest. At least you're honest. Okay, go ahead. Proceed. Apologies for the interruption.
So my question to you is this: we agree on that. You already said it. Jesse Marsh said it. I said it. There were big wins. Mexico wins are always big, and the way some of them went on were big, in my opinion. Even though Mexico ain't what it was, I guess not a win, but the draw with England was a marquee moment. Even though I think it was more of Gareth Southgate was the anyhow. Not going to go into that. My question to you is this: Copa America. We're in the same group as Bolivia, Panama, and Uruguay. Uruguay has been in a hot streak under Marcelo Bielsa, and they're traditionally a very good team, and they have very good players. The first question is: would a win against Uruguay in the group stage be considered a signature win?
Yes, absolutely. Let me go back to the England thing really quickly. Let's give them their credit. They played extremely well. We're unlucky not to win that game. In in my eyes, I thought the U.S. men's national
Mhm.
team did enough. Weston had one sitting on a platter for him perfectly that could have put the game away and probably would have made England stretch out. Give spaces to exploit in transition for the U.S. men's national team. That could have been a really bad game for England if West makes that. All right. Yes, Uruguay is with Marcelo Bielsa, the team that plays the best to their system. Not the best brand, not the best style, not where you watch and you're like, yo, this is highly enjoyable, but they play a way that Marcelo Bielsa is getting the best out of them. It's a team that presses very well. They have spaces in transition. They take their chances 1v1 at the back, and they make you pay for it. It's the highest goal scoring team right now in CONMEBOL. I mean, they got 13 goals right now. If you look at the next, it's Argentina with 8 in 6 games. They're a good defensive team. Marcelo Bielsa has them believing. They've got a sense about them that they still maintain the same mantra of Uruguay, where they're very difficult to play against. Defensively, just stingy, very hard nosed, but they're fast and they got a lethal goal scorer right now in Darwin Nunez. Darwin Nunez leads CONMEBOL. You can have your say about whatever you want about his finishing in the Premier League or for Liverpool, whatever, but don't get it twisted. Don't get it confused. This man is a baller and he's doing well. So if you can get a win against Uruguay in Copa America, that is a signature win. Now, you say they had big moments, and I'm not going to sit here and argue against the big moments against Mexico because they're iconic moments.
Mhm.
Christian Pulisic, hushing up the crowd in Denver, and what's the backup goalkeeper's name? Ethan Horvath
Ethan Horvath.
stopping a penalty kick against Andres Guardado to literally win the game. Like those are iconic moments. The Gold Cup in Las Vegas, C team. Can think about how many of those players,
True.
okay, there are still around. If it was a C team, think about how many of those players in that team that beat Mexico made it to that World Cup. C team beating Mexico's A team in Las Vegas. Iconic moment. The 2-0 in Cincinnati with the man in the mirror T-shirt for Christian Pulisic coming off the bench. Iconic moments. I get it. Those will live in folklore history in the U.S. men's national team for a very, very, very long time. But beating the worst generation of Mexican players that I've seen in my lifetime, that's a signature win for Greg
At home.
Berhalter at home. Now,
Mhm.
let's put Mexico out of the equation for a second. Every single national team I can remember has had signature wins. I just had Tony Miola on our
Mhm.
Vamos podcast in Men and Blazers, and we're talking to him, and he was talking about in the '90s beating Germany, beating Brazil, beating Italy. That Colombia team they beat in the World Cup, they were one of the favorites to win the World Cup. They were one of the best teams in the world. Pelé, but that was Pelé's pick to win the World
But
Cup.
that's
Like
why they didn't win it. Every team Pele would pick would lose. They would have won it otherwise. So you can thank Pele for that. But yeah, that team, they during World Cup qualifying, they ran over Argentina with Maradona.
they ran
They
over everybody. Those players didn't play in Europe because the drug lords in
Mhm.
Colombia paid them better. Like great documentaries on the two Escobars, on Rene Guita's story. Like look them up. Amazing documentaries. But they had those wins. Uh, that was the '94 squad. Uh, the '98 squad, we'll leave them alone. That was a they had more off the field drama than on the field. But let's go 2002. 2002, they beat Portugal in the World Cup. Portugal was one of the favorites in that World Cup. That was like their golden generation at the time. That was a generation that was going to win the World Cup. They surprised them, and then after that, they beat Mexico to get to a quarterfinal in a World Cup. You beat your maximum rival in a World Cup. That's a signature win. 2006, we can go down the list. They were
That
one
was
of
a
the top
good
five.
Mexico side, right? That was a
That
very
was a
good Mexico.
very good Mexico side. We can go, even though they got the way they made it to the World Cup is very typical of Mexico. Last second, Bombero Javier Aguirre kind of saving them to get in. But regardless, 2006, they were ranked number 3 in the world at one point. The 2010 group, which is my group. I mean, do you remember who ended Spain's 36 game unbeaten run? That was the U.S. men's national team on their way to a final. In
Josie
in in,
Altidore.
in the Confederations Cup, excuse me, the Confederations Cup, Copa Confederaciones. And then you can keep going on. Algeria, the 1-0 win, the Landon Donovan last second goal to win the group for the first and only time in U.S. men's national team history. 2014, I was still around in that cycle. We'd beaten the Germanys. You also beat the Belgiums of the world, the Hollands of the world. I think they beat Italy as well. We beat Mexico. It wasn't Belgium, but sorry, we lost to Belgium and Cleveland. But we beat Mexico in
Mhm.
Azteca. Like those are signature wins as well. You go to the group phase of the World Cup, and it's a group of death. You got Germany, you got Portugal, you got Ghana. You pick up important games there. Like there are things his predecessors, the U.S. men's national team's predecessors, have done that this group has not. There are no signature wins for this group. Not in the way where we can go, yeah, iconic and signature. Yeah, team of importance. Yeah. No, not right now.
Here's a good question for you. Let's say we beat Uruguay, which would be the so-called signature win. But let's say we don't play Brazil, we play Colombia in the next round. Brazil, if he beats Uruguay and he plays Brazil, loses to Brazil, if Brazil figures out, they go back to what they were because the Brazil right now is very beatable. The 2023 Brazil is beatable. Now, if
Yeah.
Brazil readjust
No
and they're like,
Neymar as well.
no, I still think without Neymar, if the team is how they were under Chichi, I don't think Chichi was brilliant by any means, but they were stable.
Oh,
Uh,
he was very good. Yeah, I think you're being
yeah,
unfair. They had like 2 losses leading up to his second World Cup,
yeah,
and they were
but
both
Chichi,
without Casemiro.
it's just hard to rate a coach that went to 2 World Cups with Brazil with a very strong team and got knocked out twice in the quarterfinals. Not all on him for sure, but again, twice. That never happened in Brazil history of a coach doing
Both
that
teams
twice.
ended up being 3rd place at the World Cup that they
They
got
didn't
knocked
win
out
it.
by, right?
They
No, I'm
didn't
just
win
saying
it.
It
Yeah.
was Croatia. It was Croatia the last one, and before that it was Belgium. I'm
Hmm.
just saying they were like the revelations of the tournament, so to speak.
Hmm. And still
Okay,
lost to the following team.
you're right.
But
You are a professional hater.
I am a professional hater. I told you. I'll find something to hate on. But I'm also apparently a USMNT hype machine because CONCACAF fans don't like that. But going to your question, to the question that I was going, we beat Uruguay. Then we go and play Colombia and we lose to Colombia, which can happen even if you beat Uruguay. Colombia's a good opponent. Uh, does that take away anything from the signature win in that scenario?
It's let me compare it to Mexico. So Mexico in the 2018 World Cup, first game of the tournament, they play against Germany.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Germany 1-0.
Mm-hmm.
They were the reigning World Cup champions, right? Right now, Uruguay is the reigning CONMEBOL leader. Okay.
Are they? Wait, isn't it? No, Argentina's in first, I
Oh,
think.
you're Argentina's 15 points.
Yeah,
You're
they're in
correct. You're
second.
correct. You're correct.
Second.
Yeah, they're in second. They're in second. They're still, for my money,
Mhm.
a
They
very
beat
good team.
Argentina. They beat Argentina.
In Argentina, by the way,
Mhm.
in Argentina. Thank you for that one, Taylor Swift. I don't know if you know about that one. They had to switch stadiums because Taylor Swift concert and they ended up playing elsewhere. Yeah, yeah. All right. Anyways, they're a very good team right now, but everybody in Mexico always puts an asterisk. Like, we beat Germany, but it was the worst German team of the generation because that German team didn't even make it to the second round. You know, when they beat the defending World Cup champions, went on to the next, didn't even go on to the next round. It was the last game of the group phase where they shat the bed versus Sweden, and they ended up facing Brazil in 2018, second round in the World Cup. It's still a signature win. You beat Germany in a World Cup. This can still be a signature win. You beat Uruguay in a World Cup, but it almost hinges on what Uruguay does after you beat them. Do you know what I mean? Because if you beat Uruguay in this group phase and then Uruguay goes second in the group and they ended up facing Brazil and lose to Brazil, nobody's going to be talking about how great Uruguay was or how big the win was. In that time, that window, the context will matter. But there is no way of telling how this will go, Filippo, excuse me, unless we know how Uruguay does after, because they're not a traditional power in the sense of a Brazil, Argentina, in the sense of you know, a France, an England, a Germany type of deal.
So let me tell you why I brought up that question. Because what I was thinking is we need a signature win. I agree with everyone that says that. But I almost feel like instead of putting the goal getting a signature win, the goal should just be to make it to the semifinals. I think if we make it to the semifinals, we'll either get
You'll have your signature win,
or at least a signature elimination, even if it's on like if we eliminate Brazil or Colombia in the quarterfinals, whether it is on penalty kicks or regular time, that to me is a signature knockout or win, a win. You advance.
of course.
And then to the question here, Herc, what is a realistic goal for the U.S. men's national team of the Copa America from what you've seen? Not what you want, but realistic. You're like, we get out of our group and we lose to Brazil. What in your opinion is realistic?
So if today Brazil's A team versus the U.S. men's national team's A team played off in the States, if I had to lean one way of who I think would win, I think the U.S. men's national team would beat Brazil today. Like today, there's nothing in this Brazilian team, at least defensively. They're very toothless in the attack as well. Which Richarlison are you going to have? Like, who's going to come out to play? You know, I would honestly feel good in a tournament setting with the way the U.S. men's national team plays. The A team, how stingy they can be defensively, how good they could be in transition, like them playing up to their level. And that level, let's say England World Cup, them playing at optimal level to maintain and to manage a result, then the guarantee of Brazil winning. How Brazil plays to their DNA of trying to get to a result. I'd feel more comfortable saying the U.S. men's national team would win that game. So to answer your question, the goal in the World Cup is semifinal. I think the goal here has to be
Copa America, you
semifinal.
mean Copa America? Sorry.
No. So
Oh,
the goal
World
in the
Cup.
World Cup is a semifinal.
Mm-hmm.
Said this last year, but I think I said this right after the World Cup in Qatar, that it has to be semifinal, because if you ever had an opportunity of making a deep run, it had to be on home soil. If you ever had an opportunity of making a deep run with the national team pool, it had to be this pool of players who will be in their prime. So if this is a dry run for the World Cup, that has to be the same mentality. If Jurgen Klinsmann's 2016 team can make it to a semifinal run on home soil with less of a team, and I say that loosely because there were some very big players on that team, very good players. then you should be able to do the same here. And I think a favorable cross, like if you look, it's Brazil, it's Colombia. Dude, I think this Commonwealth cycle is so it's so Jekyll and Hyde. Like it's so like, what Brazil are you getting? What Colombia are you getting? Are you getting the Brazil who last year led everything, who was number one, leading all the way up until those last games against Argentina? Or are you getting, the Brazil we see today? Are you getting the Colombia who today shows very, very promising football? Or are you getting the Colombia who had all this attacking flair last World Cup cycle, but failed to score a single goal in 7 straight games? Like, what Colombia are you getting? So it's the same thing with either team. I think it's a doable cross. I like the semifinal appearance shout as a bar.
I agree because we made it in 2016. However, disagree with one thing. I don't like the United States' odds against Brazil. Historically, Brazil's a nightmare matchup for the U.S., just based off the record. The way Brazil plays, it doesn't really match with the U.S. very well for the U.S. There's teams that make it. Mexico historically makes it much tougher for
Do
Brazil,
very well against Brazil.
even when
Yeah, yeah.
struggling. While the U.S., it always seems to be a nightmare matchup. Things don't work. Even when Brazil is on their low, they managed to beat obviously because of quality too. The thing with Brazil is also historically, they're not bad for a long extended period of time. In 2023, they were bad the whole year. The U.S., and well, not under Berhalter, but if the U.S. played their best at home with the 2023 Brazil, the odds were there because now they have Dorival Jr. They got Dorival Jr. I think there will be some stability there. And we're probably going to see some players like Vinicius, Rodrigo, young Couto might resolve one of the fullback issues. So I think Brazil for the Copa, I don't think it'll be peak Brazil, but I think it'll already be a team where like these are back to being title contenders. That's what I think we'll see.
The Brazil I see right now is a repeat of 2016 Brazil that I saw under Dunga. That's the Brazil I see right now. Now,
Yeah,
if that's the case,
like a C team for that one.
do you remember that team? That
It was
cost him his job.
horrible.
That cost him
Horrible.
his job. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the same type of Brazil right now. Listen, the last time they played was in September, I believe. Was that the last time
No, we
anybody's
played
played?
Argentina in November or
November.
October. November, October, we played Argentina. We lost Argentina in the Maracanã.
That's right. Okay. It's been a while. No Neymar, which anybody out here can say what they want about Neymar. He when he is healthy, he's one of the premier players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
He's the closest thing you've had to a Cristiano or Messi in
Mm-hmm.
quite some time before Mbappe started coming in his prime. So
Mm-hmm.
a player you could definitely use. If it's that Brazil that we've seen, I'll take the chance. I'll take the U.S. men's national team's chances over Brazil. That's the only thing I'm saying there.
Yeah, and I guess it's really Brazil's probably the country that's the hardest to know what we're going to get in the Copa America. Is it going to be the title contender that they normally are, or is it going to go back to 20? I don't think it'll be as bad as 2016 because Dunga, I'm not going to say it in the channel to not get me in trouble. There were some iffy things with that national team in terms of agents, which we can dive into.
Yeah,
off
that
camera.
Peru game also was kind of sketch. It was a
There were some
handball goal.
weird things happening with the coaching staff and directors of the federation there. So, which is probably why a lot of people got fired after that. And obviously, they don't leak everything to the media. I don't think we're going to get that. But if we get the Brazil from the 2022 cycle, those are title contenders for the Copa America to compete.
Of course.
And if the United States, so we talked about that. I think we should aim for the semifinals and try to knock out, possibly try to face Colombia. I like our odds against Colombia. Is one of those teams that they're very good, but they have like one or two players that are big difference makers. Like Luis Diaz was the reason they defeated Brazil, scored 2 headers, brilliant player. Now, if he's injured, there's no way we should lose to them at home, Colombia, and they still have good players. But then let's go to a scenario that I don't think will happen. I don't think it'll happen because our group is very top heavy. The U.S. and Uruguay are quite a bit above Panama and Bolivia, even though Panama, coaching wise, Thomas Christensen, great job. Bolivia, no altitude, shouldn't be a problem. So let's say a scenario we get grouped, which again, I don't see that happening. Where do you stand? Berhalter out? It depends. To me, it doesn't depend. If he gets grouped, out. I don't care even if he won Nations League. If you get grouped in this group at home, you got to go. Where do you stand there?
That's a tough one. So In my analysis, I have the luxury of the context, right? Of him, this being his second cycle, and you're regressing in your second cycle. So I would call for out. But if you're just judging this cycle, like with Jimmy Lozano, if you just judge this cycle, if you get grouped, it'd be very difficult just out him, right? So Jimmy Lozano, I wouldn't out because the player is not going to change. The pool is not going to change. There's a lot more context here. The pool has been changing, potentially can change in the next 2 years, and maybe will change with one or two surprises, good players coming through the ranks. So why have you regressed? It's not the pool of players, it'd be the managers. So there'd be a scenario where, depending on how he got outed from the group phase, that could be his final straw. I don't think that will happen. Not from a result standpoint. They could easily get outed because I think people sleep on Panama. I think if there's one national team in CONCACAF that's the coach has drilled his idea, tactical idea of who they are, how he wants them to play, it's Panama. They might not have more material. He might not have more material at his disposal, but he does more with the material he has than most managers in this region. So I can easily see a situation where Panama surprises, right? If that does happen, I think we're looking at a situation where many are calling for Greg Berhalter to step down or for the federation to do something. I don't think the federation does anything.
Yeah, I can see that too. I can see them just riding with Greg till 2026. If we talk about the federation, the only way I can see them firing Greg is if something happens, like he loses the locker room. Players literally come up to them and just say he lost the locker room. Not Gio Reyna specifically, but players like McKennie, Pulisic, Reem, which I don't see it happening. They seem to
Those are the
like
same
Greg.
players who vouched for him. Those are the same
Yeah.
players who stepped up to the plate for him
Mhm.
with the federation. So, listen, I don't think it'll happen. I think people need to not confuse this tournament. This is very much a dry run for the World Cup. You should treat it as such in every single way. And this is why, and we'll get into the subject of a player like Tim Ream. This is why you need to give those players who you think could be important factors in 2026 the time now.
Even if they're struggling, even if they struggle, yes.
Of course. How else are you going to learn?
We'll talk about that so we don't get ahead of that topic, because that topic, there's a few points to make. Last but not least, for this Copa America episode, I wanted to ask you, and I'll give you mine too. If you had to pick one team to be a dark horse, which means you got to eliminate Brazil, even Brazil's iffy situation, you can never put them as a dark horse for the Copa America. Argentina, current World Cup champions and Copa America champions. And then you have Uruguay, which, if I'm not mistaken, Uruguay is the team that has the most Copa America titles.
Yeah.
So eliminate these three. If you had to pick one team to be the dark, you can pick the US if you want to win the Copa America. That's the dark horse. It'll shock. Like Peru made it to the final not so long ago, so it can happen. Chile won in 2015, 2016. Pick one team, Herc.
Yeah, that Chile generation was ridiculous. So Alexis Sanchez, Marco Vidal, they had Edu Vargas. They had a ridiculous amount of talent on that team. Two-time Copa America back-to-back champions, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I will go with Ecuador. Now, let me tell you why I'm going to go with Ecuador. Do you remember Felix Sanchez, who's a coach of Qatar, in the last World Cup?
3-5-2 transition merchant, yes.
Yeah, that team before the World Cup was like the talk of the town. They played very well. It's a team that was well worked. Reminded me a lot of Thomas Christensen and what he's done with Panama. Very well worked. Well, he stunk it up with Qatar in the World Cup. They were actually in the same group as Ecuador, the Netherlands, and I want to say Senegal. Thank you. Ecuador was the team for me that played the best. They should have beat the Netherlands. That's when it all went south for them. They have one of the youngest teams. I think it's like the top 3 youngest teams at that World Cup. They had one of the youngest teams at that World Cup. They actually started this World Cup qualifying campaign, -3 points, because Byron Castillo, who was like, I believe, Colombian-born, Ecuadorian, there was some problem with his paperwork, and they played him without the paperwork being finalized or legitimized, and they lost those points after the World Cup. So they started -3 points this World Cup campaign. They're already in fifth. They're 1 point behind Venezuela. Um, they're very defensively sound. They're very young. Iner Valencia, he's like, I don't know, he's late 30s. The guy is like a big tournament goal merchant. That's what he does.
I
He
think
comes
he's still
alive.
early 30s. We think he's ancient, but he's like 32 or 31 because he's
I
playing for
don't think so.
Internacional. Ener Valencia.
Yeah,
I'll check. I'll check while you're talking. I'll check.
yeah, ex Tigres, ex Pachucas, ex West Ham, etc. Like the guy just keeps scoring goals, big time goals.
34.
34. Okay. Like if you look at his World Cup goals, I think he's got already like 8 World Cup goals, something crazy like that. He comes alive in big tournaments. So you've got an experienced leader, experienced goal scorer. You've got a young group. You've got a good manager, tactically sound. This team defensively is very important in tournament settings to have a very good defensive team. They're very stingy. They're young. They've got up and coming talent. Kendry Páez is one of the players right now making waves around the world. He's like that 16-year-old that Chelsea bought. He was playing with the U20 World Cup, at 16. They got some interesting players. I think they can make a run. If I'm looking at the rest of the names that you gave me, I can't use Argentina, I can't use Brazil, I can't use Uruguay. I don't feel confident enough in trusting Colombia. I don't feel confident enough in trusting Venezuela, even though they got a lot of attacking flair. And Chile, Peru, I mean, Peru just made a managerial, change. They've got some good attacking pieces, but I don't feel good about them either. It just makes sense for me to take a flyer on Ecuador.
Unfortunately I have to agree. Not unfortunately, it's just I can't argue with it. I was hoping you'd pick a different one so I could discuss with it, but I have to go with that because if I was gonna pick a dark horse, I was gonna have to go again. We eliminate the top 3, then you have Colombia, which all it takes is Luis Diaz goes down. I'm like, oh no way, not a chance. That's it. United States, they haven't proven to us that they have the grind or the spirit or the coach to pull that upset yet. We were talking about the signature win before.
Right.
We haven't done it, so how can we bet on the United States? I really want to. We're playing at home, and it seems like we have the players that with the right coach, the right moment, and good form, we can shock everyone, but haven't got that. Mexico, if they had a good generation, they're essentially playing at home because they're going to pack every game. But
That
I
group
don't
is
trust
difficult
it.
as well.
And I
People
don't
are
trust this
sleeping in that
team.
group.
And I
Yeah,
don't
that
trust
group
this
is Mexico, it's Ecuador, it's Jamaica, and
Jamaica.
it's who's the third? Who's the
Venezuela,
fourth?
right?
Venezuela. Yeah,
It's a tough
yeah.
group. They can get grouped. Mexico can get grouped. Can't trust Mexico. So that leaves us with Ecuador, which defensively, another 2 players I want to mention right there. Piero Hincapié, very good center back, good on the ball.
Stupian and
And
Stupian.
Estupinan that plays for Brighton is having a
Yeah,
heck of a season.
yeah, you're right.
Moises Caicedo. They also have Zambrano that they're sending to, I think Bournemouth is signing Zambrano. Is an 18-year-old. He's going to be competing with Tyler Adams, actually.
Yeah,
This
Grueso's
guy
in the
is
midfield as well. I just forgot about Grueso being in the midfield as well. Good
Grezzo
player.
probably a backup. I think Zambrano might become a starter there. And then what I always thought was missing with this Ecuadorian side, it's like, wow, the defense good, midfield solid, Valencia up top can give you goals, experience. It always felt like, okay, they're missing that superstar guy with flair, which at times we thought it was like Gonzalo Plata, but not really. And then you got Kendry Páez now, which
Yeah.
he already has, I think, 2 assists in World Cup qualifying. And the kid is only getting better because he's turning 17 now. He's going to go to Chelsea, like you already said.
I was gonna say, I don't mean to interrupt you. Can I tell you something? You mentioned
Yeah.
something about Brazil and like the problems. Listen, this is if you're a Latin American and you have a second national team, whether if you're Mexican American, if you're whatever the case, if it's U.S. national team or if it's the Mexican national team and you have a second national team for whatever reason and it's a Latin America, a lot of our problems are the same. It's corruption at the federal level, at the federation level, the brass. You mentioned something about Brazil in the corruption there. Now, I've played many years with Ecuadorian players, and it's starting to change now. So that leads me to believe that corruption at the top is as maybe loosened, or that person who was in charge doing this is no longer there. But for the longest time, the Ecuadorian stars, instead of going to Europe, the president of the federation would negotiate on their behalf directly and take chunks of the transfer to the Middle East, to Qatar, to Saudi Arabia, before Qatar, Saudi Arabia was a thing. This is when I was still playing in Liga MX. So you had players, amazing talent, amazing attacking talent. Ecuadorian players, you're like, man, this kid can play. This guy can play, and they'd go play in the Middle East. Guys that I still follow today on social media, and you could see the kind of trajectory where like they're in the Middle East, they're making crazy amounts of money, but the level drops off. They
Mhm.
relax. It's no longer competitive. They come back to the national team, and it's just like whatever. It's the way it is. And those players who were there in the Middle East making that money were still the same players getting those call-ups. So it's very difficult for everybody underneath. I think it's changing. I think it has changed a lot, I should say. But if you're of Latin American descent and you have watched other national teams, other programs, how they operate, that's always been kind of the MO.
I think Antonio Valencia, Wigan, and Manchester United, that probably played a big role in changing that over time
Yeah.
culturally too. And to
Yeah.
me, it's the same one. If I had to pick one, it would be Ecuador. Now it's very unpredictable, this Copa America, and hopefully the US is the one to surprise everyone. It's just that they haven't given us enough reason to do so. But that does it for this episode, everyone. Drop a like before you go and let us know your dark horse if you think the United States, Mexico, or someone else has a shot. Maybe Peru can shock everyone. I don't think so. Peru's not the same. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.